everybody, and welcome back to another episode here on the SitRep podcast. I am your host, Oriskany, and today I'm joined by my friend Piotr. How you doing, Piotr?
Hello, James. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Not too shabby. Okay, guys, so what we're going to be taking a look at today is a game of PanzerBlitz depicting part of the Battle of Studzianki. Hopefully I'm even coming close to pronouncing that correctly. Where we saw some Soviet and Polish forces engage German units in an important battle in August 1944. The Allies have already landed in Normandy. The Soviets over here in the Eastern Front have won, of course, the huge battles of Moscow in 41, Stalingrad in 42, and Kursk in 43. By 1944, they've pretty much smashed their way completely back out of, not entirely, but mostly out of areas that were considered part of the Soviet Union before the German invasion in 1941. And they're also now deep into Poland. And they're coming up near the Vistula River in central Poland. So, we come to a place called the Magnushev Bridgehead, and Piotr, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Magnushev Bridgehead?
Okay, so the first Belarusian front in 1944 on the 18th of July started with something that was part of Bagration, so the large map you can see on the screen. And part of this operation was the so-called Brest-Lublin operation, which was to secure the city of Lublin. And during these fights, the first Polish army, commanded by General Berling, was part of the fighting. And some Russian Guards rifle divisions captured a bridgehead near Magnushev at the end of the operation. And the initial Soviet plan was to hold to the bridgehead with these 4 divisions, let the German forces bleed out on the bridgehead, and then pull more and more forces across Vistula River in order to get into Poland and finally, of course, into Berlin. But actually the Germans reacted quite swiftly, sending in some Panzer divisions, so the 19th Panzer Division and the Hermann Göring Panzer Division. And the situation on the bridgehead started to look bad for the Russians. Since they could not afford to lose the bridgehead on Vistula, they decided to send in some reinforcements, and the reinforcements that were called were the Polish 1st Armored Brigade. And that's the story and the background of our operation at the bridgehead. And what I can also add is that the battle is known as the Battle of Studzianki, despite the fact that it was the so-called Warecko-Magnuszewski bridgehead. But of course the communist propaganda after 1945 had to declare a great victory, and the use of Polish forces over there. And a funny fact, the name of the village, the Studzianki village, was renamed in the 50s, if I remember correctly, and is now known in loose translation as Armored Studzianki. They even have a museum of a few tanks over there, and during the communist regime times there were many meetings of political government held over there to commemorate the victory over the Germans.
Okay, everyone, so really fast, here is the opening map for our scenario that we played in Panzer or PanzerBlitz. They're kind of the same system. Every hex on this map would be about a 28mm table. Every 4 hexes would be about a 15mm table. So this is going to be a big battle, because we're going to fill up this area with a lot of units. This is going to be a pretty big game, especially on a relatively modest map in Panzer like we see here. A few areas of note, of course, are our objective hexes. Again, anyone who watches our channel and watches Oriskany's hex games knows the simple deal. There are usually 5 objective hexes on the map, and whoever controls at least 3 objective hexes by the end of the game wins the game. So, yeah, super simple on that regard. So I won't go through every one of these because there's a lot of units going on here, but I'll go through the Soviets super fast. We have elements of 2 Guard rifle regiments from 2 different Guards rifle divisions. I did not want to put two incomplete Guards rifle divisions on the map. We would still be playing this game now. We'd be playing it at Christmas, so I didn't want to get that into it. The Soviets also had a little bit of tank support down here in the form of elements that would love the Guards Tank Brigade, but the ones I really wanted to put in here were my heavies, 36th Heavy Guards Tank Regiment. I love independent Guards heavy tank regiments. They're my favorite Soviet units. They don't really show up until late war, but once they do, you have a lot of fun. Interestingly, you do see some of these. Piotr helped me confirm that these were actually there. You do see some KV-85s. These are very rare tanks that you almost never see. I think the Soviets built a grand total of like 100 of them, or a couple hundred of them. And then, Piotr, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what's going on with 1st Polish Armored Brigade?
Oh my God, where to start? Well, it was quite a new unit in the Polish army in the east, because it was based on the first tank regiment that fought a little bit earlier during the Battle of Lenino. Stalin agreed to upgrade the regiment into a brigade. So it consisted of two tank regiments and some support units that you can see, some BA-64s and some Su-85s that were also present at Magnuszew and the Battle of Studzianki. So it was actually it was a relatively green force when it comes to their experience. Actually, only some members of the 1st Tank Regiment saw battle area, and the rest was green. And this led to some casualties during the battle historically. But we shall see how they did during our battle.
Okay, so in terms of PanzerBlitz, what we do is we basically created 2 battalions, 1st and 2nd battalions here, of roughly 35 tanks apiece. Then they also had a small element of T-70 light tanks. We see plenty of those at battles like Prokhorovka. Yeah, and then this regiment of Su-85s, another one of my favorite units in PanzerBlitz. Now, historically, these guys were in reserve further back in the bridgehead, and I don't know if these guys ever actually saw combat. But one of the great things about historical wargaming is you get to be the commander. So, as the commander, you can say, I don't want those guys in reserve, I want them up at the front where I can actually use them. So that was one of those artistic license judgment calls that we made, where I think this is 13th self-propelled anti-tank regiment actually did get into combat. In our table, where I don't think that actually happened historically, but we chose to use them here because, again, they were with 1st Polish Armored, but they just their commander chose to keep them in reserve. We as the replay commanders decided otherwise. And moving over here to the Germans, again, we're going to be going through these guys super fast. The Germans I more or less built in 3 basic groups. So, like Piotr and I were lamenting when we were building this scenario, wow, yeah, building the Germans in a late war historical scenario is always an adventure, because records are a mess, and, so many German units are so badly broken up and recombined and attached to other units, and they're really trying to hold it together with 2 hands by this point of the war. This is August of 44. Normandy's already happened. Paris is about to fall. The July 20 bomb plot has already happened. Germany's really coming up on the end here, in a lot of ways. So, again, we had that Hermann Goering, elements of the Hermann Goering Division that we were talking about before. Again, this was a heavily politically favored German Panzergrenadier Division. So they're going to have their attached Schwerpanzerabteilung of Tigers. But after that, it's almost all Mark IVs, the old German workforce. Then we have Kampfgruppe Neckar, which is a Frankenstein of a force here. It's made up of elements of 45th Grenadier Division, 17th Infantry Division, and what I didn't actually add on there, which I guess I should have, is they also had elements of Hermann Goering, Luftwaffe Panzer Grenadier Division in there. So this thing is a Frankenstein's mishmash from like 3 different divisions, and they just kind of put it together under this like random, I don't know if he was a major or a lieutenant colonel or something, and they're like, dude, we need you to go here and set up a line and do something. You know, here are your forces. None of them know each other. They're all from different divisions. Some of them don't even belong to the Army. Some of them belong to the Air Force. It's a mess. And finally, the third group was made up of the 27th Panzer Division. That's just Panzer Division. That's actually an error right there. That should read 27th Panzer Regiment of the 19th Panzer Division. And that is Kampfgruppe Bayer. So these guys are just, you know, a detachment from the 19th Panzer Division. They're going to be forming up on the German left wing, and they're going to be trying to keep the Hermann Goering Division connected with the rest of the German local forces here in this battle.
Yeah, and if I can add to the Tigers that you put into the scenario, we can say it's quasi-historical because the Russians and the Poles reported numerous destruction of Tiger tanks, which of course were not Tigers but Panzer Cup force. And the same with Joseph Stalin, with the Su-85s. They weren't there during the battle, but we put them in because we could. And so we can say we added the Tigers because the Russians reported destroying them.
Yep. So, with all that out of the way, let's finally go to our setup. So, again, this is the map that we were looking at just a second ago, except now we actually have our forces on the map in their very, very rough starting dispositions, historically. And then, of course, from here, we're going to, you know, kind of kick history in the ass as we start to play. We make our own decisions and we go from there. So, 36th Guards, Independent Heavy Tank Regiment is up here. We have the elements of 35th Guards. Again, it's not that whole division, it's really only the lead elements of one of his regiments. So this is nowhere near a full Guards rifle division, trust me. This is like a 10th of a Guards rifle division. But a little bit of a Guards rifle division there, specifically the 35th. We have Polish 1st Armored in their basic starting positions. And then we have 2 battalions of the lead regiment of 47th Guards here. I should note that 35th and 47th Guards Rifle Division are part of 8th Guards Rifle Army that has recently crossed the Vistula River. Some of these armored units, I think, are detached from 2nd Tank Army. And that's the Allied forces so far. And then here we have the Germans. Again, we have Kampfgruppe Bayer here. We have Kampfgruppe Necker here in the center. And we have kind of the rest of the forward elements of Hermann Goering Division over here to the east. So the Germans get to move first. The Germans have 0 objective hexes at the beginning of the game, but there is one here that they're going to be able to snatch up pretty soon. There's one here that I think they're going to be able to take after a little bit of a battle. To be much more difficult, there's going to be one here, there's going to be one here, and there's going to be one here. There are the crossroads. So one of them I'm playing the Germans. One of them I'm going to pick up pretty much for free. One of them I'm going to be able to pick up after a little bit of a scrap. The real game is going to come down to, can I grab one of those other 3? Okay, so turn 1 pretty much just sees the Germans. I'm the German player. Pretty much just sees the Germans engage here in the south. I'm getting ready to smash open this objective hex. We'll let Piotr talk about it in just a second, but it looks like Piotr has pulled some forces out of there. He doesn't want to fight that lead spearhead of Hermann Goering Division, and I don't blame him at all. I've, sure enough, rushed forward and snatched up this objective hex here at the crossroads. And I've started to establish a forward position here. I've got some Tigers, and I've got some 88s that I'm trying to put there in that woods because I got great fields of fire where I can threaten all kinds of stuff. Also, sort of defend any threat that these Polish tankers might present if they come south. So, Piotr, anything that comes to mind, or anything you remember specifically here about turn 1?
Oh yeah, when I saw you on the left wing take the objective for free and starting to push the line with your infantry, with your Panzergrenadiers and tanks, I decided to withdraw. Now I can be smart and tell that I set up a fire line between Studzianki and your forces with my heavy tank regiment. This
gun line here.
Yeah, this gun line over here.
I spent many hours staring at this tree line going, oh god. Oh no.
Yeah, so this is the one part I remember, and I didn't know yet what to do with the Polish First Brigade, so I held most of it in reserve, just shoved some Su-85s up front into the tree line behind Studzianki, and a few platoon of tanks with the tank riders to support the eastern wing, so to speak, and that was all I did.
Took that high ground over there in the northeast.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, we're looking at Tigers. We're looking at multiple platoons of Mark IVs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The better part of a Mark IV battalion. Martyrs, anti-aircraft half-tracks, grenadiers. And, I mean, he's got a pretty tough force down here, but it's really just infantry and some light artillery. Some 76mm divisional guns, some 37mm flak. And a bunch of guards rifle platoons. Those are good guys on defense. Also, however, it's in open ground is the objective X. That's right there at the crossroads. So, yeah, infantry trying to defend roads from tanks is always going to be tough, because tanks like roads, and they can go fast on roads, and they like to overrun people on roads standing in their way. Okay, so here we are on turn 2, and we can see where some of the battles, some of the engagement has actually happened. So at high level, again, I'll usually start off because I'm the Germans, I go first in the turn. I've now moved up a lot more armor to this tree line here to protect this objective X, because the last thing I want is for Piotr to sort of realize how powerful 36th Independent Guards Tank Regiment really is. Swing down here, pick up this road, and outflank me from the left and retake that objective X. I'm trying to avoid that. Also, I want these heavy weapons and tank platoons to be in a position where they can provide supporting fire for when I'm making a direct assault on Studzianki itself, which I am now doing. I've sent forth 3 sort of sacrificial platoons to spot some of these Soviet forces here in the southern shoulder of the town, but they've got plenty of support. I've got a Vespa there, I've got a Hummel there, I've got a 15cm infantry gun, or infantry battery there. I've got a lot of stuff. I've got a Tiger here, I've got 88s there. We are going to put this town in the mother of all crossfires when we go ahead and make that contact. Unfortunately for my Germans, we have to spot the Soviets first. They're all in towns, they're all hiding in bunkers and basements and streets and cellars, and we got to go in there and we got to find them, which means that I'm going to get kicked in the teeth a little bit. Down here, I have managed to overrun this force and retake, or I should say, just take that objective. Unfortunately for me, Piotr has scored an early win when he has cat attacked. That's PanzerBlitz for close assault tactics. It's basically infantry attacking tanks. So sure enough, as my 2 platoons of Mark IVs and my platoon of Tigers go in there, he fired his 76mm division guns at point blank range. That's a whole battery of them. And a whole battery of 37mm anti-aircraft guns, again, point blank range, less than 150 meters. And he managed to disperse or pin down that unit of Tigers. Then he close assaulted with something like 300 Guards rifles. Now you have to close assault the whole hex. You can't pick and choose within the hex. But because my Tiger platoon was already dispersed or pinned down, and then my Mark IVs were in good order, what wound up happening was everything got a little bit worse. So my 2 good order platoons of Mark IVs wound up getting dispersed, and my Tigers, who were already dispersed, managed to get destroyed. So on turn 2, with Guards Rifle Infantry, he managed to take out some of my Tigers. I was a little irate about that. But I am cracking some of these other positions here on the southern shoulder of Hill 119. There's no objective hexes there, so you might wonder why I'm doing that, but what I'm really doing is I'm isolating this position down here. If I can break some of these units in this intervening terrain here, push a few German grenadier platoons into these wood and slope hexes, what I'm going to wind up doing is ensuring that he won't get any more reinforcements down here in the south, and that this little force of Guards rifles are now left on their own. But that's pretty much my play for turn 2. What did you have going on for turn 2, Piotr?
Actually, I wasn't knowing what I am doing. to be honest, I was still thinking about how to play this game when it comes to tactics, because I have a basic understanding of the rules, but I was thinking what to do, and actually I was cat focused, and I tried to destroy your tigers. I got obsessed with it during turn 2, and I was thinking how to do it, and not as much on the way at the point where I managed to do so, but that tiger with those 88s at that tree line just east of Studzianki. Most of my energy during that turn focused on thinking how to get rid of that. And basically, as you can see, not much happened at Studzianki. We were just repelling your scouts, so that you're just in order, to weaken your forces, because as we all know, grenadiers and infantry is tough in this game when it depends. And to the southeast, I was trying to do my best to stall your advance, and luckily I managed to destroy a platoon of tigers.
And yeah, as far as that tiger and 88 position up here, yeah, what can I say? I kind of made it as a linchpin between like these two, overall lines of my overall position. It wasn't a bad position. It's got great fields of fire. I just don't think I supported them enough. They're kind of out there at the tip of a salient on their own, and they could have been cat attacked by all kinds of guards rifles out of the town. That would have been terrible, but it would have been good in a way, because now you would have vacated those two town hexes. To your credit, you did not fall for that bait, but there was also a lot of pretty much the whole Polish 1st Armored Brigade was going to come down here and really put a whooping on that hex. I expected them to do a little bit better than they did, but what can I say? But other than making sure that I took this hex, and now I just have to hold it, and fortifying my position here on that objective hex, I've got 2. I've got to take at least 1 more, and I win the game. Okay, wow. Okay, going over here to turn 3. Guys, things have finally kicked off in a big way. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on Studzianki here a little bit. Okay, so here's the immediate position around Studzianki, and wow, yeah, I went ahead and finally launched my overall offensive into that town. Now that I have these positions spotted, I'm calling in fire from a battery of 10.5 centimeter howitzers that I have back here. I have direct fire from Vespas that are now destroyed, and my 15 centimeter infantry guns that are now destroyed, and my Hummels that are still okay. I tried to protect my gun line a little bit by dropping in these smoke screens. I realize now that I totally should have put those 2 smoke screen hexes here and here, 0709 and 0710. If I had been a little bit smarter about my hex line, about where I put my smoke screen, he wouldn't have been able to take out these 2 very, very powerful direct fire artillery assets, and to help out this one I still had left. I think I really could have smashed the southern side of Studzianki open a lot more than I did. I've managed to put a little bit of a dent here in the southern shoulder of Studzianki. That's not so hot, because 1st Polish Armored is finally committed. And again, yeah, those are those 88s and Tigers that Piotr was talking about before. So yeah, there's a lot of problems. He's also launched a major CAT offensive, or I should say infantry offensive, close assault tactics offensive, from 47th Guards Rifles, and also the mechanized or the motorized infantry of 1st Polish Armored off of Hill 131.8. And in a series of well-done cats, including smokescreen cover, that's one of his smokescreens, more or less wipe out an entire battalion of Jagdpanzer IVs. I was not happy about that at all. You'll see here where he committed simultaneous cat attacks and overruns in what's called a PanzerBlitz assault. That's with tank riders. So you have tank riders on your tanks, you're driving forward, you overrun the enemy positions, and at the same time, because you have infantry riding the tanks, they jump off, and they can also do a mounted infantry fire, sort of a cat attack, against the same position. It's extremely dangerous. It's because, infantry on tanks is murderously vulnerable. I took opportunity fire on him. I needed anything but a 6 to cause that whole stack to disperse. If I had rolled anything but a 6, that entire 3 platoons of T-34s would have dispersed. Infantry unload. The hex is now triple overstacked. All the infantry would have died, or just been wrecked as far as combat effective units. But wouldn't you know it, I rolled a 6. That cat attack, and overrun went in, and that was the end of pretty much that whole battalion of Jagdpanzers, or Jagdpanzers 4s. Not so happy about that. There's a lot going on down here as this battle starts to wrap up. It cost me more than I wanted, especially those Tigers, but at the end of the day, I'm going to win this battle down here on the south. But there's sort of a joining battle between the main position and that southern flanking position that's starting to develop and expand. He shoved some Polish armor down here. I'm not so happy about that. If you look at this German line, you're going to see that it pretty much ends there. Again, this is the better part of a kilometer. This is like 700 meters of just flat out open ground. There's a lot of woods there, but there's a huge gap in the German line. I was actually kind of scared that he was going to send this little renegade force of Polish T-34s right through that gap, and God knows where he was going to wind up. But yeah, when this battle gets this big and the forces start to coalesce around objectives and around assaults or defeating assaults, what winds up happening is space starts to open up in your line. So you got to be careful of that when you're playing a game like Panzer Leader. So how about you, Piotr? What did you have going on here in turn 3?
Well, you started to launch the attacks on the Studzianki itself. So things were not looking good from my perspective, especially when I saw this smoke of yours blocking sight on most of my tanks. So I decided that the Poles have to do a huzzah attack and destroy your, so to speak, the right wing of the Studzianki attack. With all these Jagdpanzers in play and the Tigers sitting ducks in the woods just shelling Studzianki, I decided something has to be done about that. And after 2 turns of moving forces, I launched, as you can see, a very coordinated attack on all of these poor Panzerjägers that got destroyed, and opened a field for my tanks in order to push southwest and hopefully destroy most of your support units that were attacking Studzianki from the south. That was the plan. How it played out, we shall see in the next turns.
Here in the aftermath, this was really, I mean, I'm not just trying to be nice. This was really well done. This converging attack of artillery, ground troops, tanks, and more infantry riding the tanks. I will add the asterisk that there was one absurdly lucky roll here. So
that's true.
Luck was on your side, but even if that roll hadn't been lucky, that attack still would have worked. You did it, you set it up correctly, and you executed it correctly. It just would have cost you more. It's going to be mostly skill and experience, and it's going to be a little bit of luck. There's always going to be a little bit of luck, but if you know what you're doing and you're actually take the time and set up a set piece assault, luck's going to have startlingly little to do with it. It's not going to be that big of a factor. It might luck might come into how long it takes and how much it costs, but whether or not it works or not, you make that decision as the commander. Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
No, thank you.
No, seriously.
What I was really seriously worried was your slow grind of Panzergrenadiers towards Hill 131.8 down here in the south, because you were eliminating a unit after a unit of my infantry, and I was sending more reinforcements just to hold your infantry off and just to stall your advance. In the south, I was hoping to last one more turn, maybe 2, but I knew the position when it comes to the objective hex was lost already, so this was just, to keep you occupied down there and keep your forces away from making a flank attack over the element, over this objective hex, and I think I managed to do that.
Oh, absolutely.